The evening of the town council, she and I were at the Bushnell where they recognized the 2021 and 2022 Connecticut Teachers of the Year. That in the top photo here, you can see those little arrows pointing. The arrow on the side points to Ashley Rancourt, who is the Mansfield 2021 the Mansfield 2021 Teacher of the Year, but also a Connecticut semifinalist. And of course, right there in the center is our own Kim King, who is the 2022 Connecticut Teacher of the Year. That photo shows the semifinalists and finalists from the 2 years. And so there was special recognition given to both of our teachers. Kim had an opportunity also to give a speech to the crowd, and it was an incredibly moving speech. She spoke about the small moments in a teacher's day and the impact that they have on children. And Kathy will attest to this. There was hardly a dry eye in the audience when she was finished. She has really become a beautiful speaker and represents not just the teachers of Mansfield, but the teachers of Connecticut amazingly well. That photo at the bottom is Kim at a recent White House visit the previous week to the ceremony on May 10th. She was in D.C. for a convening of all of the Teachers of the Year from across all of the states and territories, and I've got a little arrow pointing to where Kim is, but you may also notice in this photo on the very bottom on my left, thank you, is Miguel Cardona, the Secretary of Education, former Commissioner of Education from Connecticut. So we love having a friend in the White House. And in the center of the photo, both President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden, whom Kim had an opportunity to say hello to, as well as many other of Connecticut's elected officials. So really exciting couple of weeks for Kim and for Mansfield, because she represents us wherever she goes as well. On the next thing I wanted you to know, just a really quick update. You asked, I think it was at our last meeting, or maybe it was 2 meetings ago, for us to follow up with the Connecticut Office of School Construction Grants and Review to let them know about our interest in possibly doing some sort of work with our facility at the Mansfield Middle School. We held that meeting last week, and we got some very helpful information from them regarding our options when it comes to reimbursement and how we would need to apply for that reimbursement. And as well, they reviewed the process with us a bit. So as the town continues to figure out what they're doing with facilities, and as you make your decisions to come back to considering the facilities projects, know that OSCG&R knows that Mansfield is talking about this, and they're ready to support us. So it was a really good conversation. Looks like we're having a little bit of trouble with the slides, but hopefully they'll come back up quickly, because I wanted to share with you some wonderful photos. This Saturday is the middle school drama production, done a little later than they typically do it, but given COVID and some of the other challenges this year, it will be presented on this Saturday. 2 shows at 2, I didn't write this down, 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Right. There are 73 students in the cast and crew, and these performances have become a whole school event, whether you're participating day of or not. It started some months ago now with all of the students having the opportunity to participate in a mosaic design. You may have seen it. It's in front of Mansfield School, Middle School, as you drive past. And then many of the classes in the middle school have taken up the project as well, and it is now sort of tradition that all of the costumes are made by students. And you can imagine costuming for the Lion King is pretty challenging, but not only do the students make them, they also design them. And they go through quite a process to research and figure out the design. So you can see on the bottom left there, one of the paper mache, I think it's paper mache, costume heads. And I love this I don't know what character she is, but it's obviously some feathered friend there in the gray outfit. The next photo shows students who are rehearsing. As you can imagine, a play like this takes a lot of rehearsal. There's a lot of dance as well as the singing. And on the far right, we have some students in our life in consumer science class who are preparing some of the refreshments that will be sold at the show. Again, the students had to do some research into finding refreshments or baked goods in this case that were sort of traditional for the area of the world where this play takes place, and then identified or found recipes and identified processes for making them in large batches to be able to be on sale during the show. So really a great event. And springtime brings a lot of other exciting events. The photo on the left, it happened this week, actually. We brought Nature's Classroom, a traditionally residential program that students attend offsite. But we brought Nature's Classroom to the middle school for 2 days, working with all sixth graders. They spent the entire 2 days outdoors. And worked with our own staff as well as staff from the Nature's Classroom program on science learning as well as community building. They had 2 of the most beautiful weather days we've had this spring, lucky them. And on the right, this is a second grade classroom at Vinton School. Kate Harback is the teacher there. Her students have been studying tidal pools, and the students have been writing books and decided to put on a play. And so they've been creating scripts and scenery and costumes and completely student directed. And I just love walking around our classrooms in the spring. Kids have so much independence and are really directing their own learning. And I thought these 2 examples were great little snippets to share with you. And that's the end of my report.
Great, thank you, Kelly. Anyone have any questions? All right, we can move on to report of progress, support the whole child. I'll come back.
Okay, so we don't have as much space at the table. Maybe while I get started, I think what I'll do is I'll ask the administrators and staff who are presenting to maybe just pull up chairs in a little bit of a semicircle, and then as you speak, you are going to need to use the microphone so that everybody that we're Zooming with and everybody who's watching this program can hear you. I'll just remind everyone that this is our first year using this approach to our development plan. This approach meaning that we have identified 3 key strategies in our development plan that we're using to ensure we meet the expectations of our work. And each of those key strategies is reported out to you at about 3-month intervals so that you truly get a sense of the continuous progress that we're making in our schools. So if you can you start the slides? Okay. So I'll just mention that you have a written report as well. And as we've done in the last 2 reports of progress, this is the third of 3, the written report is intended to provide you with an overview of the work that's been done over the last 12 months in this particular area. It also includes some data that are taken from a variety of our measures that we collect that are related specifically to this key driver. And the purpose of the presentation this evening is to drill a little more deeply into the report itself by sharing some specific examples. In fact, you may hear some things that aren't even written about in the report, but want to give you a nice view into the schools and what this looks like on the ground, so to speak. So if we're good, I'll step you through a few elements of our practice here. So all of our work, I think we're Are we advancing by itself? Oh, okay, good. Okay. All of our work is designed to ensure that we meet the mission of the Mansfield Public Schools as defined or redefined by you last year as we redid our strategic plan. And we also work to ensure that our core beliefs are truly lived, and these are our goals. So we don't establish additional goals in Mansfield. We have said that these are our core beliefs, and it is our responsibility to ensure these are lived and realized within our schools day in and day out. We accomplish the realization of our core beliefs by focusing on 3 strategies. And those strategies on the next slide are ensure deep learning, know students, and support the whole child. And again, we've given you reports on the first 2, and tonight we'll be focused on supporting the whole child. In our development plan for the year, we define the actions for supporting the whole child and remind you that each of those actions ties back, using the little icons at the end, ties back to our core beliefs. So you read in the report about how some of those actions have been enacted this year, and that's what you're going to hear more about, as well as a little more information about the indicators. So again, in the report, there was data to support these indicators, as well as some additional data, and again, you'll hear a little bit more about that tonight. So if that's clear to everybody, I'll get us started by inviting Candace Morell to share with you what social emotional learning looks like at the elementary school, specifically with how we support all students. You're going to hear that there is some overlap, certainly, in each of these key drivers, but our focus tonight is talking about how we intentionally attend to more than just the academics with a child. And ensuring that we can attend to more than the academics means personalizing supports often for students.
Good evening. We're really pleased to be here tonight to be able to share what we've been engaging in our work around social emotional learning and what we call the tiers of support at Mansfield Middle School. When we think about social emotional learning, we really think there are 3 tiers to the work that we do in the middle school. Tier 1, really looking at those the work and provide to all of our students. And those come about through grade level developed SEL curriculum, classroom practices, common shared experiences that are building wide and grade level specific. And then we look at the tier 1 practices that we engage in with our students and our families. Those tend to be more small group. They tend to be more personalized, specific and intentional focus. And then, of course, tier 3, we look at those practices that are individual, one-to-one, intense student support. So we'll start by first talking about whole school experience. Much of our work that we've extended this year was really thinking about how do we extend the social emotional learning block for all students in our building. And while we have always engaged in work, we really took a deep dive into this a common shared experience for our entire school this year. We have dedicated social emotional learning lessons at all grade levels. That time is utilized. The curriculum is developed by our grade level teaching. It is sequenced, tailored to grade specific needs and trends, and certainly teachers have the flexibility with the work that they've developed to modify and adjust based on trends and needs they're seeing arising in day-to-day work. What's unique this year is that we actually dedicate Fridays for that SEL work, and we shut down the building. And so in years past, while we've done this work at grade levels, because of the structure of our schedule, we never had capacity to have everybody engaged in it. This year, by nature of adjusting the schedule, we have the capacity to do that. And what's really nice about that is you get everybody engaged in learning activities in the discussion and dialogue, so it doesn't just affect grade level teachers who are supporting students, but all teachers are there in home working with. And it's been very positive. In addition to that, in our tier 1 practices, we also look at what are those additional experiences that we provide and work to tailored to meet grade level specific student interests. This year, we really look at, Kelly just recently met in the classroom. I would call that a grade specific opportunity. Small group, interest, highly engaged based allows for kids to interact and grow their social. Additionally, thinking about the recharge days that we've offered at grade level this year that were highly successful, again, personalized to the. And then looking at those larger common shared experiences across the building, attending to concerts and other. The Lion King mosaic was a wonderful example of that, and the plays and other. And Larry will speak about Tier 2 practice.
So Tier 2 is small group focused support, personalized to meet the needs of small groups or individuals. Oftentimes this looks like drop-in or check-in with our school counselors, on-demand support and drop-in, or routine support through the check-in process. Implementing break passes for those who need them or would benefit from them is another type of support that we implement at the middle school. We're also engaged in restorative practice sessions. So this year, myself and Candace, we've engaged in over 522 service interactions that provide small group or one-to-one support to students. This entails problem solving, developing or growing social skills, and building emotional stamina so that students can develop the skills and receive support and feedback to navigate their school experience successfully. Additionally, student support is provided by our school counselors during lunch groups, where they focus on building up social skills through instruction and support. Beyond this, school counselors have engaged in over 1,000 small group or individual service interactions this school year alone. As we jump to Tier 3, this is more student-specific support for our high-intensity need students. Oftentimes, these types of students have individualized behavioral support plans that allow for ongoing support and feedback up to a class basis. Every 45 minutes, they're getting that feedback. We've been fortunate to partner with Youth Service Bureau this school year. They're in our school 5 days a week, and they provide ongoing social work support and counseling. And then oftentimes, students at this level need additional support. So as the need arises, we do refer to outside counseling and support. While students at this tier often do receive this outside support with service providers outside of the school setting, school staff are engaged in continually supporting these students. This involves multiple one-to-one meetings within a given school day, communicating with teachers, or collaborating on special care plans. All this, tiers 1, 2, and 3, in an effort to meet the individualized needs of our kids at the middle school.
So all of this work is built upon the SEL framework that I know has been presented to you and was described in the report as well. And also in the report, you'll see a little more information on some of those specialized days that Candace mentioned, the restorative days, and that's not the right term, recharge days, right. And just a great amount of congratulations and appreciation to the middle school staff, providing intentional, regular instruction in social emotional learning is not something that you find in all middle schools, nor is it something that until a few years ago we were able to do here. And it has been very, very well received and has also been really necessary during this time of the pandemic. Do you want to stop for questions, or should I keep going with the next presenter?
Anyone have any questions or comments?
I'll just quickly echo. I know you all have always done such wonderful work. Supporting individual kids or smaller groups of kids, but that effort that goes into making some consistent school-wide work happen is so necessary and hard. So, and requires a lot of system support, which I know that you provide around changing schedules, thinking about the curriculum and all those pieces. So thanks to everyone on your staff to, really doing this school-wide. It's a lot of work. So, thank you.
One question, if I may. This is wonderful. This is what we should have been doing for years and years. My question is, family engagement, is that part of the, part of what we're doing here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think family engagement is a critical component of everything that we do. And we really seek to partner with families and share with them at Tier 1, what are some of the strategies that we are offering to support all students. We invite them to be a part of that. We've had many community members and even family members be able to be a part of the recharge days or the multiple offerings that we offer. And of course, as we move into Tier 2 and Tier 3, our primary focus is how do we partner together to better support not just the child's needs, but the family's needs. And we do that in a variety of ways. I mean, you've known that and heard about that. We have children in our school that I believe this is about, part of a community. And, they can't pay for athletics. They don't have a ride home because it works. We negotiate with them to make sure they get to that meet, they get home.
That's wonderful.
And if a kid misses a bus, we're picking them up. I mean, this is what we do because it's important that they feel a part and know that we're there for them, no matter what. We have worked quite a bit here with making sure interpreters or families understand, have a seat at the table, what the process is. That's just important for us that kids in the feel that support. And
That's excellent. Thank you very much.
So along with supporting the child's social and emotional needs, of course, we want to make sure we're supporting their academic needs. And one of the programs that I asked to be shared with you this evening is the Reading Tutor program that we established this year. Now, this program was set up in direct response to the pandemic and the effect that the pandemic has had on our students. We started with our youngest learners, students in grades K1 and 2. We said, we also know that transition to any school, whether it's a middle school or a high school, can also be challenging. And certainly we saw some of those challenges with our students who had to transition during the height of the pandemic. So we also included in this tutoring program grades 5 and 6. Every once in a while, there's a student in another grade that really needs some support, and there's room, and we include that student. But these are the primary grades that we've sought to support students in. This is Kay Jakin, who is our district-wide literacy coordinator, reading consultant, and most of you have met her, but not everybody. Kay's been really instrumental in supporting all of the work we've done in developing our literacy program as well as writing the curriculum. She oversees things like this tutoring program and other support programs that are offered in our schools. And I have to give our congratulations to Kay. She has just been named principal of Putnam Elementary School. So, Kay, tell us about the Reading Tutor program. Is it on? Green light?
Oh, it's on now. Okay. So our Reading Tutor program, as Kelly started to highlight, we currently have 64 students in the program, and it cuts across grades K1, 2, 5, and 6. We have 7 educators working with students to identify their specific learning goals and then develop a plan with teacher collaboration and myself to help address those learning goals. Many of the students are tutored during the school day, with a few exceptions of kids that have come before the school day starts to meet with their tutor. The sessions for the students range anywhere from 15 minutes with kindergartners to 45 minutes with the middle school students, and the first graders and second graders work for about 30 minutes, 3 to 5 times per week. And we are seeing great progress. As you can see in the chart, 81% of our students have achieved more than a year's worth of growth. And these are students that came in far below grade level, some of them reading and not as 5th or 6th grader, but, for our first grader, let's say, coming in reading at a beginning kindergarten level, and now are, made a year or more worth of growth in this amount of time. And teachers are in the progress of administering their spring assessments. So when I calculated this 81%, I'm using progress monitoring data, and we know in just a few more weeks that they will continue to grow. You know, one of the key successes to this program, I think, is the collaboration that's happening between the tutors and the teachers and the principals and myself. We meet regularly to talk about student progress, to look at where they are and look at the data. That the tutors are keeping meticulous progress monitoring notes and anecdotal records on these students, and we are adjusting their programming as they're moving to make sure that they're getting what they need. So it's really been a team effort, and I think because it's been a team effort, we've seen this program amount of success. See if there's anything else I can say about it. I think it's just been a pleasure to work with the staff and the teachers and the tutors. I mean, the tutors generally care about the kids, and they're, you know, not only developing the skills that they need to become readers or continue to grow, but they are really developing a love of reading, which is what we want to see. And because they're able to get this one-to-one time with the tutors or even in a small group, it's really help them shine. And that's it.
I'll add a couple of things about how we're structuring the program as well. The Tutor program was made available this year, was created by us this year using some of the ARP funding. So that funding that was intentionally set aside by or given to us by the federal government to support addressing the needs brought on by the pandemic. It's a fabulous example of some really good acceleration work. In other words, our efforts here have not been to slow down the work of the students or to keep them from grade level learning, but instead to support them to be able to achieve grade level learning. So all of these students are getting full reading instruction in their classroom, so this is all additional support. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I thought of this looking at the picture, we actually were able to get some of our retirees to come back and provide the instruction. High quality instructors that know Mansfield's work, committed to children, and willing to come back at this time, and that's been really nice.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Oh, Kelly, go ahead.
I was just going to ask about the students being serviced. Have students graduated and you've added new students in? Is it like a rolling?
Yeah,
enrollment?
we're always
So how many students have you guys worked with throughout the whole year?
64 total.
Oh,
And
64 total.
Yep.
So how many are you servicing then, like at a time?
well, each grade level has a different number of students. So for there's six kindergartners, for example. 23 first graders, 11 second graders, 1 third grader, 16 fifth graders, and 7 sixth graders. And then some of them have been exited. So 8 students have been exited. And then some students have been moved to more of an intensive program depending on the needs.
Okay.
But yeah, we're seeing that they're making growth, and when they've met their goals, we exit them. And if they need to continue to work, then we'll keep them in.
So is there like a capacity of students that we have that we can serve based on the number of instructors that we have and tutors that we have?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a variety of different ways. This is just one way that we're kind of meeting their needs. We also have interventionists that also work with students. So depending on the needs of the students, depends on, you know, who is enrolled in the Reading Tutor program. So I think that the teachers and myself and the coaches and the principals will look and make that decision, like, this is a great fit for this child, let's put them in the tutoring program. Maybe this one needs, you know, something different, and we'll put this child with, you know, an interventionist. So I think we look at all kids to kind of decide what their needs are, and they're adjusting it all the time. So I know, you know, they may work with one tutor and then they'll work with an interventionist in addition. I mean, it's very fluid and flexible.
Can I ask that question a different way? Are
Yes.
there children who need services who are not getting them? Not quite what you wanted? Okay.
No, I think we're trying to meet the needs of all kids that need that need. need that kind of service. Yes, I think we are meeting the needs of kids. I think there is a capacity, if that's what you're kind of asking, to how many kids we can put in the program, but I think we're doing our best to try to make sure we're getting all kids services that they need. But yeah, I mean, there's just not enough time in the day, and we have the tutors work a limited number of hours.
Yeah, that was just
So-
that was more my question.
Yeah.
Because I guess I just misread that number. I didn't know if that was the total number of kids you had serviced all year, or if that was the current number of kids that had serviced, so. you did
That's
help
the total
clarify
number.
that. But yes, but the capacity is a big issue, because,
Yeah.
you know, I do think that you guys all seem like you're invested, and I really like that fluid approach, that you have lots of different touch points for kids to have interventions, and I think that helps to not miss learners, or to help meet them in different ways and help meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so then just, I guess, along with that, what is going to be the continuation for them for tutoring? Like, are you going to use the data from this year to have a program in place set up for next year? Are they getting summer services with this? Like, what does that all look like?
Yeah, we're in the process of working on that right now, of identifying, well, once we get the spring data in, we'll have a better sense of who we can recommend for continued services next year. We hope to get it rolling, like, right when the school year starts. And then some of the students that are in this program are being recommended for summer school. And we're kind of working out those details right now. So not everybody will go, but it'll depend on, you know, the progress that they've made and what their needs are.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
I just had a quick follow-up, which is, you've already kind of answered. So we do, I should remember this from budget, we have funding and are going to continue this program next year.
Well, it's not in the budget, it's through the ARP funding.
It's through the ARP funding.
But yes, it will
yeah,
continue
that's
next year.
It will be grant
Yeah.
funded. And then after that, we need to take a look at, all of us need to take a look, or we need to take a look, not after next year. We need to take a look about whether that's something to take on ourselves.
Right, right. And, you know, the theory is that by providing strong acceleration support for a few years, that we will close the gap that was created by the loss that students experienced during the pandemic. As Kay mentioned, we do have other personnel who can also provide some service. But absolutely, one of the things to look at next year is, what is our capacity to continue to provide services, and do we have enough capacity for the students who need it?
Who need, yes.
Yeah, and I just
absolutely.
think that's important to recognize that it's not just, yes, the pandemic was an event that affected many people, but there are constantly events that affect some people. And so having programs like this in place to catch those kids up based on whatever they've experienced to that point is necessary.
It's just wonderful, and I know we've gotten like a great kind of an informal term, bang for our buck for this, this investment, and I think it's wonderful the kids are making progress, and I'm thrilled that it's going to be in place next year, and so grateful to all the reading tutors and what you've provided to.
First of all, some of you know, but you may not know, I am a reading consultant. That's what I do now. So this program is of particular interest to me. One of my questions, I guess, was already answered. This is funded through the grants. And I'm expecting that we will look for some way to continue this funding if we see a need for that as we go forward. Yes?
Yes.
That's what we've been discussing, right?
Okay. Another question that I have. Another question I have is there any plan moving forward to look at those older kids? I work with students in 5th through 8th grade, and there are 7th and 8th graders who could benefit from a program like this, who have very specific needs that, if addressed appropriately, could then shoot forward. Are we looking at that for the future?
Yeah, this is just an example of one program. We have also have academic support in the middle school.
Yes, I know.
And we have a teacher that supports kids in 7th and 8th grade too. So we do have other programs that we're.
But this seems like
But I'll remind you that we actually have in the budget an additional
Right.
teacher for
Right.
grades 7 and 8,
Okay.
Yeah.
specifically to address some of the needs that were identified. Yes.
What I've found in the work with my students is that the pandemic really has had an effect on students in all grades, but I've also found that this year simply being in school and having regular lessons and participation has made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we continue to give that support, because it takes a little while to have these problems, and so they don't miraculously go away in a short-term program. Sometimes kids need that extra shot and then something beyond that. And I was happy to hear that some kids are then taken from this program and then segued into another kind of program that will help them. And then the last thing I wanted to ask was, how did you identify these students for this particular program?
Yeah, we used our screening assessments that we administer 3 times a year, the benchmark assessments, and that's called Star Reading and Fontes and Pinnell benchmark assessment system, and then just teacher observation in classroom. I mean, we've worked hard to coordinate that with teachers so that they, they're reading with their readers and they're identifying some needs, and then, we meet and then we design a program or a plan based on those needs, and we plug them into a spot with a tutor. So I feel like we're doing a really good job identifying kids using data and observational data to kind of make a plan based on the needs.
And then putting their plan together based upon that specific student's needs.
Yep. Very much diagnosing the reading,
Yep.
kind of the area of reading that they need more work in, and then building a comprehensive plan that supports that area of growth. And then I would say this year especially, they've done a very nice job of progress monitoring, right? Regularly reading with kids
Right.
to make sure that they're transferring that skill, right?
Within
To
the regular-
applying it and then collecting that data.
Right.
If I showed you the data sheets, it would blow your mind with the amount of data that they're collecting on an ongoing basis that just shows that the kids are growing. Real progress monitoring data, just right down to the discrete skill, like,
Right.
they're decoding 2-syllable words, right? And how,
Soft C or-
exactly, and just being able to transfer that and then also understand what they're reading. So we've spent a lot of time having those conversations. And this is great practice too, because it's not only supporting the kids that are in the tutoring program, but we're talking about all kids when we
Right.
have the conversations with teachers about, where
That's
kids are
right.
with reading skills.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you plan on doing some type of post-study with the students who have graduated to see if they've been able to maintain this growth?
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's part of our practice to always look at, how kids are achieving over time. So, yeah, I think tracking this and making sure that, the first graders that are in the program continue to grow
Right.
up into the middle school. Yeah, we're definitely keeping an eye on that, and we have lots of data to keep collecting and making sure that the kids are continuing to grow over the years.
I just think it's terrific. I think sometimes you just need to unlock one little box for
Yeah.
a child, and then everything flows together for them. So I think it's great that we're giving them this. support.
Yeah,
So
thank you. We're unlocking lots of boxes.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they're loving reading. It's good.
That's wonderful.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Kay. Thank you.
welcome.
Thanks, Kay. So you've heard us talk a little bit about supporting social and emotional growth and academic growth. Another area, of course, that we focus on for the whole child are behaviors, and supporting children to learn to develop what we call appropriate behaviors, right? And Peter Dart's going to share with you some of the work that's gone on at Goodwin School this year.
Good evening, everyone. And I'm just so excited and honored on behalf of Goodwin and all of the schools work in social emotional learning. And I think it's important to acknowledge that social emotional learning needs to be a part of the fabric of school, not just because of the trauma, because of the pandemic, because of the challenges, but especially in a district that lifts up student-centered learning. We need social emotional learning embedded throughout the day in order for students to turn and talk, for them to engage in student-to-student discourse. And so in this slide, you see a typical picture of a classroom. This happens every day, that in instructions, kids are working directly with each other. That is supported by social emotional learning. So I don't want to give you the impression that all of our work is trauma-based or working with struggling, emerging scholars that need additional supports. It really is a foundation in terms of how we operate. And our district has the SEL framework, and I pulled 3 particular guiding principles and expectations from our document that I think are super important, and you would expect them in any of our buildings. And that is social emotional learning occurs in a supportive, restorative, positive environment, and that we devote time for teaching and reteaching and building skills. I recall one of my professors always telling me that we teach behavior like we teach reading, that we take it that serious, right? That we think about holding space for it. Another expectation or principle is that SEL skills will be explicitly taught at all grade levels and incorporated throughout the day. It's not just a one and done event. It's something that lives throughout the day. And I guess that turn and talk or that student protocol norms that we use in math workshop and reading workshop, this is how we live social emotional learning, how we practice it in an authentic way. And then the third expectation that I lifted, each school will identify pro-social norms that are modeled, taught, and prompted by adults. So what I'd like to share is a framework called Positive Behavior Intervention Supports, and you can go to the next slide. And PBIS is what we often call it, is not a program. I don't want you to think that you turn to a page or you go to a workshop and they tell you exactly how to do it. It's a framework. It helps you to think about how you create those pro-social norms in a school or even in a district in a tiered kind of method, very similar to what Candace and Larry were talking about at the middle school. But in PBIS, you start with tier 1. What is it that you want all students to be supported with? And no surprise here, it's the power of consistency. It's analogous to a canoe. You can have two people paddling, but if they're not in sync, you're not going to go straight, you're not going to go fast, and you're not going to be efficient. And so PBIS gives us a framework to have some adult agreements of how are we going to frame our positive expectations. We're going to talk about what we want our kids to do, and more importantly, we're going to explicitly teach them how to do that and where to do it. So on the right here in this slide, you see an example at Goodwin. Of course, we're the whales. You know that, and I talk a lot about that. And we use this acronym RISE, that at Goodwin, our expectation of adults, visitors, and scholars is that we respect ideas, individuals, safety, and the environment. And we use that to remind each other that that's our expectation. And so in the hallways, we rise. We use quiet voices. We go directly to your destination. We stay to the right. Notice these are all positive expectations. Notice they're not all of our rules, but there are a few very important ones that we use to make sure that, one, we can name what we expect. We can also tell students how they can show respect, and then we can monitor, we can pre-teach, we can pre-correct, we can create experiences that lift this up and celebrate when students are doing that. So what happens when a school makes those agreements? 4 years ago when I started at Goodwin, I looked at the discipline data, and I saw that cafeteria, hallway, recess, bus were some of our areas where student behavior struggled. And so by resetting the building with common language, common expectation, go to the next slide, you can see what happens to our office referral data. So starting in 1819, we had nearly 150 major office referrals. Each year, it significantly drops. And even in the pandemic, when kids are struggling to self-regulate, and we have to remind them how to share and do all of those things, our office referrals have dropped because of the common adult practices in the building. So the consistency of that and the idea that SEL is really a place where we start to create a positive culture. And when you do that, and when you do it with fidelity, you can see great results. And the picture in the middle is to show you, actually both pictures, is to show you what the culture of PBIS does. When you create that, you then all of a sudden see that kids are talking about whales and rise throughout their day. And here's a poster for the Invention Convention, and the teacher used our RISE acronym to help our scholars in their invention projects think about what are the guardrails to be successful in the classroom. And then one of my scholars celebrating with her field day t-shirt. And I was thrilled because that came from the PTO, and the parents have embraced this idea of whales and rising. and they see the power of it.
Can I just one quick thing. I know we have this wonderful opportunity with our new school to help to support some of that common language across everyone. I just wondered too about kind of getting student input around, all of what that's all going to look like, and obviously teachers' input, and then also
Definitely.
working and
Yeah.
collaborating with our scholars to establish those and revisit them.
I think I'm sharing something a little early, but we have identified an acronym. We have started to discuss what our behavioral expectations are, and it all came from our tiger mascot work. The class who was involved and made the presentation was actually the class who came up with some acronyms for us to be looking at. So we just started our committee, our PBIS committee. Right now, we're talking about tiger paws. And, we're getting some feedback right now from staff and from students. We had identified the Mansfield Tiger as the mascot. So that work is underway right now. We have a half-day professional learning for some staff who are on the PBIS leadership team this week. So it's underway.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'll keep this moving along. Another thing that's critically important to ensuring that we're attending to the whole child is that we are attending to individuals beyond their learning and social and behavioral needs, and really getting to know who they are culturally and personally. And so Mike Seal is going to talk a little bit about some of the practices to ensure culturally responsiveness in our work. And Kay is again going to share an example from the middle school.
Kay's got the fun part, really. Just a quick note.
Mike, is your mic on?
Yeah, it is. I'm just,
Okay.
I don't want it to
Come a little
feedback.
closer.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about the core beliefs through all this. Even though we're speaking about one driver tonight, I think you can see lead with equity, develop the whole child, ensure active learning, build partnerships, prepare global citizens, and grow educators throughout. And just one quick note on the reading. I just wanted to add, because Kathy, you asked a question about family engagement strategies. It has been a really powerful family engagement strategy, because we've reached out to parents and talked to them about their children's growth in reading. And those conversations have sent the message that the board cares about your kid, the administrators care about your children, and so do the teachers. So we're going to have this before school program and during school program to meet their needs. So I would just throw that in, little note in. Culturally responsive practices, I would also say, is deeply in all of our core beliefs. This book by Zaretta Hammond has been key for the leadership team. You can see the quote here that around it's more than what we typically associate with culturally responsive practices. It is about how we learn and building on students' culture and partnering with families. Similar to what Peter was saying about SEL exists from pillar to post during the day, so to culturally responsive practices. And the author goes beyond this and adds that culturally responsive teaching is not simply an engagement strategy designed to motivate historically disenfranchised students, nor is it a way to make race-based connections to content so that it becomes relevant to minority students. At its core, culturally responsive teaching is based in brain research and is about connecting to students' cultural learning styles. For example, research shows African American, Native American, Latino, Southeast Asian, and Pacific Islander communities have strong cultural traditions, which include storytelling. Learning research shows storytelling is a natural way for the brain to connect and remember information. That's an interesting sort of quote for me, because I think, again, goes back to all of our core beliefs. And now for the fun part.
So I have the fun part. I've been working with fifth grade teachers. They've actually just started to implement a unit that we wrote that kind of blends the work from the Equity Institute and the social emotional learning piece, right, and culturally responsive teaching all into one learning experience where fifth grade students are going to be reading book club books and engaging in conversations by looking at themselves through a mirror, through the books, or a window, or a sliding glass door. And in the sense of a mirror, they're going to be taking that lens and having opportunity to look at their own identity, not just what's on the surface level, but what's sort of deeper inside and what their personal beliefs are, what their values are. They're going to have an opportunity each week to reflect and tell their own story as it relates to the story that they're reading in their book clubs. The next layer of the work is looking at the books that they're reading and studying, and then thinking of it as more of a window in the sense of what do they see in other people's perspectives, what are they learning from the social issues that are happening across their books and in their own lives, and try to make those connections, again, reflecting and storytelling from their own perspective, and then learning from the perspective of others. And then the last piece of this unit is really looking at thinking about the perspectives of others and issues related to power or social issues, and thinking about how can we embrace and advocate for change through a sliding glass door, right? So how can we use literature to help influence our own selves and others, and then empower others to make changes? The teachers starting this, I was in a classroom, you'll see earlier this week, they're just now looking at the iceberg of their own identity. And it's interesting because this isn't the first time that they've had these conversations. They've had it through the SEL lens all year, but now they're starting to make connections to literature and thinking more deeply about their own identity and their own beliefs and values. And you'll see in the first photo that they're filling out an iceberg for themselves after they did it based off of a character. And they're in a space now where kids are talking about things that they probably wouldn't have shared earlier in the year, but now that the teacher has created this open classroom and feeling of safety, they're talking about things like their parents are getting a divorce, things that are really close to them, and they're interested in learning what's happening in their friends' lives, and it's the excitement and energy around reading books and having conversations about difficult topics is just empowering. The last piece I'll share with you is that we're just starting to think about how we can take this and turn it into more of a mini PBL at the end of this. So they're thinking about creating a PSA and sharing, what they've learned in their experiences in this unit, which is kind of connecting back to that sliding glass door with others in the school. We haven't quite figured out the details to that yet. We still have some planning to do, but that'll be the next final piece of the unit. And I just want to say, too, that I think this unit is a great example of our curriculum framework in action. So we've, used the backwards design approach and took the transfer goals and our essential questions from our district framework and even the Portrait of a Graduate, and wrote a learning plan, a unit based off of those outcomes. And it's been a really great process to be able to work with teachers to develop this unit.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll keep this moving. You'll see in our action plan that attending to the child sometimes means attending to the adults as well. And we are going to share a little bit with you about how we have been providing some supports to staff, and then we'll follow that up with some of the family outreach that we've done. So Lauren, you want to talk about staff?
Today I'll talk about staff more from a district level, not just from Southeast level. The reality is that it has been a difficult year, and thinking about how our teachers are faring while we're getting our students back on track after all the reading tutor work and after all the different ways that we know, that it's great for them to be back in school, and we're supporting them. But at the end of the day, teachers love kids. And having time to have uninterrupted school days, time where we're able to, get back to business, that's staff wellness. We'll continue on because there's ways where think about the Teacher of the Year, who was just, highlighted for Mansfield. What a great moment that has been. Putting her in the front spotlight has been important, as well as the smaller moves that teachers have done. So taking time to listen and hear where people are coming from, honoring the fact that SEL doesn't only meet the needs for students, but it's also for our staff. And listening, for those highlights, those moments where they can share the success of the student, or the times where they may be frustrated. We're there for them and able to listen. Kelly has worked on a wonderful partnership with our Mansfield Wellness Coordinator, and throughout the year this year, staff has been able to take advantage of salsa dancing or yoga. In addition, she did a great launch to get our staff involved with the Be Well app. So Be Well is a group that has been supportive to staff, but they recently went to application, which has a lot more features. We found at the beginning of this year that there were few staff members who had joined in, so there was a big push to get people involved so that staff can feel that additional level of support as well. One of the added stresses for this year is the new Mansfield Elementary School, and waiting to hear, what were the details, what are the plans out. For us to be responsive to them, there needed to be a plan. People needed to hear what those plans were so that they could have time to understand it and be able to, accept whatever those parts were. So the transition planning, I would say, has been an important part of keeping good care of our staff. At the middle school, Mental Health Minute is a newsletter that comes out once a week, and staff have an opportunity to read that. There's a great piece here that you'll see right in the middle there, Peace of Mind. That's another level of support, not only to help teachers know how to identify what to do next for students, but also how to take care of themselves. We also had many of you may remember, October 12th, PD Day. We had an extended lunch break where we were able to have lawn games outside for staff and food trucks, and an opportunity to just connect with one another. And that was a successful day. I didn't mention it here, but we also had the Blues and Beyond, which many people would say was one of our best professional learning days that we had this year, where we had partnered with an organization to come in to give us the history of the blues, not only to just listen, but to model, excellent learning style. We really enjoyed hearing live music, hearing live singing. Many of us danced at that profession. And finally, just one example, we embarked on a clothing swap just to freshen up wardrobes. People brought in clothes, had an opportunity to just laugh together. So, we're picking each other up. Teachers are picking teachers up. We are there for each other, and administrators are deeply appreciative for all the work that all of our staff members have done during this pandemic. Any questions?
Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Martha, please. And then
Yes,
Dave.
and I'm sorry. I was just thinking about the former set. So if anybody has a question about this staff wellness, go ahead with it. And then I have a question about the former set that we were discussing. So I'll wait to see if anybody has comments about the staff wellness.
Dave?
I just want to say I'm really glad that you are doing that wellness program for faculty. I mean, it's wonderful to hear the efforts we're doing with our students. That's really nice. But to know that you're working with the faculty, I think without that, it doesn't make a strong, holistic effort really work. So I'm
Anyone else? Martha?
Yes, going back one slide set. I was concerned when it was revealed that students were discussing private matters that probably shouldn't leave the four walls of their home. And kids' filters are often kind of leaky. So I would be really cautious about encouraging kids to share their deep family relationships with other people in the school. I just don't think that's appropriate.
Did you want to respond, Kay?
Sure, I can. I think in this case, the student, they weren't asked if they didn't have to share, if they didn't want to share. I'll say that. When I was in the room, there were kids that didn't feel comfortable in sharing, and the teacher had created a space where if you didn't feel comfortable to share, you didn't want to share. It was just something that they chose to share, based on their level of comfort with the kids in the room. That was one example, but kids had shared some other things. I was pretty surprised that they probably would have shared. I would have probably not shared that myself, but I think that just speaks to the comfort level of the kids and how they feel safe in that space to share.
The expectation is not that they share personal stories. The
No.
expectation is that they share their own
Who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. What they were sharing was what they wanted to share and what they had written on the iceberg that you see on the first picture there, and even behind the teacher. There's an iceberg on the board. They had completed like an iceberg based on a character and a story that they just read, and then started to work on their own personal identity iceberg. And the expectation was not that they had to share anything at all. It was if they wanted to. Some kids did, and some kids chose not to.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Martha.
yeah, as I said, kids' filters sometimes just are rather leaky.
Yeah.
And I think that parameters should be put up ahead of time that you don't discuss family matters. And I just disagree with having it too open and leaving it up to a child, if they feel like it or not. I just don't think that's
I
appropriate.
really want to be careful here. The expectation is not that children share personal data or information. The whole idea of this is for children to begin to identify their own values and understandings of some of their character traits, just as they do when they read stories about other people. And this iceberg that Kay talks about is just that. It's about going deeper into thinking about who you are and what your beliefs are and what motivates you. And I think as teachers, young children bring all kinds of information to school, and we become quite adept at knowing how to respond to any information that children choose to share about themselves or about others in their lives. That is part of, I think you're right, Martha, they can be a little leaky sometimes. That is part of what we learn how to do, is how to manage that. But I want to be very clear, there is no expectation set by anybody that children intentionally do that.
I'm not saying there's an expectation, but kids bubble over with information.
All the time.
And there's usually too much information, and I think somehow there needs to be a guardrail around what they are divulging, especially if it's family information.
I think there are definitely guardrails in our classes.
I just I understand how we want them to think about themselves, but I just want to be careful with giving out too much family information that isn't appropriate for that age group.
I have a comment also.
Go ahead, Catherine.
I'm also a little concerned about that. Basically, maybe talking about confidentiality, what's shared in the room stays in the room or whatever. I know that if I was the parent of the divorce, that situation, and I found out after the fact that it had been shared, I think if that was something I didn't want shared, I think I would be rather upset. So, maybe a lesson in confidentiality and expectations. And again, kind of like what Martha said, is just putting up some guidelines, is to say, that this is the stuff that, if you need to talk about it, which I understand kids do,
talk to the teacher.
Yeah, I've seen those guidelines expressed in all kinds of lessons.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jeanette, and then April, and then Kelly.
Just want to say that I think that we need to trust the professionalism of our teachers. Our teachers know their students, they know their subject areas, they know their age level and what is appropriate for activities at that age level. And we have to trust and know that they are going to handle these situations appropriately. I've taught for more years than I care to say in public, and kids do share. And sometimes that's actually very, very important. But as teachers, as educators, we are able to work with those students to support them. And that doesn't mean that because we're having a discussion of a book and how our character traits may match the character traits of that particular main character, that does not mean the teacher has an expectation that children are going to share personal information. That said, sometimes they do, and we need to trust our teachers to handle that appropriately.
Thank you. April?
I think it's pretty obvious from just the group of people that we have here how much everybody cares about what the kids have to say. And I'm not a teacher, but I would think there probably are times that they say something that you might be a little mortified about at home. But if they did, the teachers are going to know what to do. They're going to know whether to get them help or whether to steer the conversation elsewhere.
Yes. Thank you. Kelly?
I just wanted to say that I wholeheartedly disagree with the sentiments of Catherine and Martha. And as an educator myself, there are tons of ways that when kids share information, schools are actually able to provide services and actually include families in positive ways. And families are oftentimes incredibly grateful to learn of things. And commentary goes both ways. The things that kids discuss in school, they go home and discuss things at home as well. And I love that we have a district that enables kids to identify their feelings in situations and to know how to reflect and speak about what they're learning. And I think that communication is a hugely important skill, and I'm proud of our education system that we enable children to have educational paths to express themselves appropriately.
Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Certainly.
I'm not talking about our teachers. I know we have absolutely fabulous teachers in this district. So that is uncalled for, and that is also very out of line. What I'm talking about is you are in a classroom with a bunch of kids. It's the children that I am worried about going and spreading information that maybe shouldn't have left the classroom. And I really resent the comments about us not feeling that we have good teachers with, and thoughtful teachers.
Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else? I would just like to say, as a former guidance counselor, I am just so thrilled and proud of this district for really taking care of the whole child. A long time coming, but just wonderful.
Thank you. We have one more short piece to share with
Yep.
you. As I mentioned before, supporting the child also means the adults in their life. So along with supporting the teachers, we also have a lot of ways to support families and to reach out to families. And Dr. Patwa is going to share some of those things with us. Are you on?
Me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. It's a good segue into family engagement, and it actually should say family and community engagement, because you'll see in the next slide as well. Communication is key. So how do we welcome families? How do we have that two-way dialogue? This year we started Language Line to eliminate the barriers inherent in for second language learners. 75 calls have been made to date in terms of, and the minutes vary. The top language is Spanish, and so the more we use this, the more families are aware of it. When you walk into our schools, I think there are at least 10 languages posted with the directions that we have a way to communicate with you. And so it's a very exciting opportunity. In terms of communication, there's frequent points of contact, and especially with support staff, although not limited to support staff. In terms of support staff, though, however, when we have families where maybe a student has very complex needs or multiple services, we've increased the points of contact to perhaps weekly meetings, monthly meetings, team meetings, phone calls, especially with some of our students who are nonverbal. Families need to hear how the day went or just want to have a little more information. So looking at all those ways that we could do positive phone calls or contact points just to share information. Along that line, home visits are an active part of the care teams, support staff, administrators. To date, over 40 home visits have been done, and that's an underestimate, to tell you the truth. In terms of those home visits, we are looking at sharing resources, helping with paperwork, connecting with services, discussing concerns, and just, doing transitions. In terms of also, it's not just the home visit, but inviting families into our schools to have meetings one-on-one. Typically, they might be with the school psychologist, they might be with a school counselor, with administrators, with a team of people, with teachers. And it's just one more way to break it down so that it's not, one environment versus another. It's about coalescing around that student and the student's needs. Another exciting program that our school psychologists have been through, it's called the Parent-Teacher Home Visit Program. It's a little different. It's proactively reaching out to families. So a trained person goes along with a teacher and goes to a home visit with the intent of nothing else but making a connection, knowing about the hopes and dreams of that family. So Roseanne Holden is piloting that, and you'll see more of that next year. I have another slide. Another way to reach families is to have access, and in the special ed world, technology has been really helpful. Our PPT attendance has been amazing because we offer it in person, Google Meet, Zoom, and oftentimes we've got families meeting in the parking lot at their work or in the lunchroom at their work. They don't have to take a half an hour to drive here, drive back, and we respect that. And then timing, looking at ways to meet families' needs. We have morning PPTs, evening PPTs, and that's not exclusive of just PPTs. It's also parent-teacher meetings. Many staff are incredibly flexible with their time to help meet with parents. And again, the locations vary. We go everywhere. In terms of collaboration, there have been over 75 referrals to outside agencies, and that includes places like our own Youth Service Bureau, DCF, Helping Hands, and I think you've heard about the Helping Hands grant. We've done a lot of referrals there. Joshua Center and Nantucket Hospital as well. And then the Department of Developmental Services. We communicate with physicians on behalf of families, and we reach out to therapists in the community as well. And then another way that we're engaging with families, parents and caregivers as well as community members are participants in many of our committees. Our Wellness Committee, which is a kind of a overseeing a wide range of pieces that make for the whole child and supporting the whole child, is comprised of family, parents, community members, and staff in district and in the town. The SEL Task Force has parent members as well, and our hiring committees also include parents. So we look for a lot of different opportunities to reach out and, like I said, strengthen that bond.
Anyone have any questions?
I'm just curious, what platform do you guys use for parent communication right now?
Well, it depends on the grade. The younger grades are using Seesaw a lot. The older grades, and help me, it could be a Google Classroom kind of thing. It could be texting. That's the other thing we found, that texting families is a really great way to go. Quicker response, everyone can kind of access their phone. There's, I'm sure there are additional ones all over, each school has.
So that's interesting that you say that. I would just like to throw it out for consideration if that is going to be a mode that seems to be effective, that maybe there's room within our budget in years to come to get teachers school phones, because I don't think that people should have to share their personal
Yeah.
information, but I do know that that is just the way technology is headed.
Well, and
so-
I'll say to you, Kelly, that Google has a way of, we can text via Google using our own phone, and it's private.
Oh, great. And so teachers receive technology training on that?
If they choose to, yes.
Okay. Because I just think that's important to make sure everyone's
Absolutely.
aware that that's an option then. Okay.
Yeah.
It's actually very simple. You're given a code and a number that you post in, and then it's just like using a regular phone. We started that during the pandemic last year.
Yeah, no, I don't
No,
know if everyone
no
has
one
training.
would have to use their phone if they didn't want to, yeah.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
So I'll just end with the final slide, just say this, again, this was the third of our reports of progress. Hopefully you've received over the course of the year some really helpful information about the work in our schools. These reports will continue. When you look at Ensure Deep Learning again next fall, it'll be doing a 12-month look back. So it won't just be those things that happened at the start of the year, but anything that's happened since the last time we reported on that in November. And again, you can see that the core beliefs are alive and well in our schools, and that work is definitely continuously developing.
Can I just say, it used to be that we would get presentations from each school or examples from each school, which was wonderful, and I know the huge amount of work to coordinate all of this to report on us, like what's going on district-wide, is just really helpful. I mean, I find this way, having this organized this way is really helpful for us as a board to know what's going on. So thank you all for also putting all of those pieces together for us, because I know that's not a small task either. So thank you.
Anyone else? I'd like to say thank you too, again, just.
Yeah, I have a question.
Certainly, Martha.
In the back of, I didn't have any of this information, but it was some of it, but it was formatted quite differently. It was page 23 of our packet and onward. It talked about, maybe we haven't come to this, but it's spring survey responses. Is that something we haven't talked about yet?
We did.
Or was that part of this?
We highlighted it in the report. We did not highlight it as one of the examples this evening. Did you have some questions about the surveys?
Yeah, I did. I was curious, there were percentages in there about agree or strongly agree, but I'm curious to know how many questionnaires were sent out, or I guess this was probably SurveyMonkey or something like that. How many respondents? It talks about a percentage, but I was just interested in, if we sent out to 200 people, did we get 50 people responding, something like that?
So at the middle school, all the students took the survey, and Candace, you have the percent of parents?
Yeah, so at the school, all of the middle school students participated in the student survey. From middle school, we had about 126 parent respondents. We sent this survey out multiple times with multiple friendly reminders, and so the percentages reflect 126 respondents from parents.
And
That's amazing.
Okay,
given
and
your,
how many, if everyone had responded, how many parent responses would you have had? 300? 400?
So, Martha, it's probably, we have 474 students. Obviously, there's more than one student per family.
Yeah.
I mean, a typical respondent over the years, a typical number from the middle school families is about 200, I think, is pretty average. We just, in spite of sending this out multiple times with the link, received 126 responses.
Okay, no, I was just interested in knowing the yield. Thank you.
Yeah, I think when it comes to survey science, that that's well more than 25%, so that's pretty high, right? Okay, yeah, surprisingly, I remember learning that one time, the small percentage that is considered a valid response is much smaller than I would have expected. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your
Thank
time
you.
this evening. And I'll move us along the agenda. The other thing that is on your agenda this evening that is a nice look into our schools is some information about the elementary instrumental program. This is being presented to you this evening because of the change that was made last year in the strings program and some data that I shared with you much earlier in the school year about our participation and the interest that you had in hearing more about that. So it looks like we're having some technical difficulties here. Try it on a sheet of paper and see if that helps. Okay, we have a dead mouse. Okay. There you go. So I'm going to give you a few of the stats regarding, yep, that's the one, regarding our instrumental program. So you'll remember that we changed the strings program this year to be an integrated in the day program and a program that is offered without a fee. And we are offering that program to grades 2 through 4th elementary level. Again, this is all focused on elementary. Nothing has changed with our high school programs, our middle school programs. And then in the band area, we begin band instruments in 4th grade. And we had hoped this evening to have the 2 instructors from the orchestra and the band program here to share with you. But unfortunately, they both have other Thursday evening commitments. And so they have very generously created a video for us, giving you a little bit of this information. Jill, is this working? One of the things I want to make sure you see, and it's on the screen right now, is the percent of participation, which is amazingly high. So in 4th grade, where students can select either an orchestra, a string instrument, or a band, a musical instrument, 85% of our 4th graders are participating this year. There's no fee to any of those students, and as you'll hear, students who need support to get an instrument are given that support. 46% of our 3rd grade students, that's string instruments only, and 60% of our 2nd grade students. And they're, again, as you'll hear, they're starting the outreach for participation next year, and it looks like it's going to be another year of high participation. If you can go to the next slide, and we can start this video. I think if you just click on it.
Hello, my name is Kate Smallage. I am the beginning brass and band educator here in Mansfield.
Hi, I'm Shannon Webster. I teach 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade beginning strings, as well as 1st grade returning strings in Mansfield.
We're really excited this year because we had a total of 60% of all 4th graders in Mansfield take a woodwind, brass, or percussion instrument.
And we also had 25% of our 4th grade students take a string instrument.
So altogether, this means that 85% of all 4th graders in Mansfield are taking some sort of instrument, strings or band related. So this is a wonderful number, and we attribute this to the fact that we've moved the program, the lesson program, into the school day so that students are pulled out from their classroom instruction and meet with their lesson teacher for a 30-minute lesson once a week. And this has really taken the idea of equity and put it into action for greater access for all families and students.
Yeah. And so 4th grade students can start a band instrument, but the 3rd grade and the 2nd grade students can play during the school day as well on a string instrument. So this year we've got 46% of our third graders in Mansfield taking violin or cello, and we have 60% of our second graders taking violin or cello, and a very large number of those students are playing for the very first time.
This is such a wonderful shift in our strings program because it just really, you can see the accessibility to all students and families just explode, and the interest is really there from so many families and students. So in addition to myself for the band program, we also have Mrs. Julie Frascarelli, the elementary Vinton teacher, music teacher there, and she teaches the woodwind instruments, so flute, clarinet, and alto saxophone, and she'll be continuing that into next year as well.
My string counterparts are Lindsay Clark. She teaches violin lessons at Goodwin Elementary. She's also currently the orchestra director at Mansfield Middle School. And our cello teacher is Miss Sandra Boyer, and she teaches at Vinton, Southeast, and Goodwin, all of our cello students.
So our students were allowed to start their ensembles. This year, of course, it had to be before school at Mansfield Middle School, so all three schools could come together. And we were allowed to begin this at the end of March when some of the COVID restrictions were relaxed, and the students were very excited about this. They receive a 45-minute band and orchestra rehearsal. This is, again, just for the fourth graders, and then they get bused back to their elementary schools for the start of the day. We will culminate this experience. I think we've only had 6 rehearsals, and we have two more. And then our concert is next Thursday, May 26th at 6:30 in the evening at the middle school auditorium.
So both of these ensembles are going to continue through the end of the school year to make up for lost time. And we're really excited that this year, even with our really large numbers, school instruments have been provided to families that asked for one. And students were able to, for the most part, have their choice of instrument, which was also exciting.
And we're going to try to continue that, really honoring students' first choice as much as we can for their instrument of choice when they sign up. And this year for the third graders rising into fourth grade, we tried to make it more of a rolling enrollment where students listed their first and then second choice. And soon we'll be sending home our notifications, letting parents know the instrument that their student was assigned to. And for the most part, we've been able to honor everyone's first choice.
So for next year, like Kate said, we have a rolling enrollment for next year. Students are still signing up, but the percentages for next year look really good so far. We think that they're going to be comparable to this year or possibly even higher once we have reached out to students we haven't yet heard from, and just we're so thrilled that so many people are so excited to be a part of the instrumental program. We think it's such a crucial part of a child's education to be exposed to a musical instrument, even if they don't plan to become a professional musician. It's part of being a human, and it's really exciting that we're able to offer this.
And so to help bolster our our library, our catalog of instruments, we have some money that we're going to use to purchase new or gently used band and string instruments so that our new Mansfield Elementary School can have its own collection, and we won't have to turn to the middle school to borrow instruments for school rentals. And we also became sensitive in looking at some of these instruments and how old they look, even if the case looks old or the instrument is kind of banged up a bit. We don't want students who have financial need to have an instrument that doesn't look or sound as good as others that might be renting it. So we want to step up that caliber and that quality of the school rental instruments. So we're going to work year by year with Lauren Rodriguez and kind of find money in the budget to start to build that instrument library, really.
Yeah. Well, I think those are all of our main points, but again, we're so looking forward to continuing our lesson program at Goodwin with grades 2 through 4 next year, and then working on making the transition to Mansfield Elementary School.
Yeah, thank you for your support of instrumental music and all music here at Mansfield Public Schools.
Thank you.
They're going to let you hear a little bit of their students.
solo we have. Ready, go!
So talk about the whole child. There's another side of the child for sure.
That really, wow. Participation rate? Oh,
Yeah.
just excellent.
So I will finish things up with the last two items on the information and presentation section of the agenda. I have no update on the middle school roof. Nothing has transpired since last month. We are still waiting on the final word on solar installation, but the roof committee met about 3 weeks ago, and I suspect they'll get more information soon. The school elementary school update, there's quite a bit to share with you with regards to the progress on the building, and I also want to begin including in these updates progress or actions towards our transition as well. So I'll start with the building. A great picture from about a week ago shows you that our roof is complete. And you'll see in some of the other photos that they're starting the siding, and the inside is continuing to be framed and more. Some of the windows have gone in even since these pictures were taken. And if you can continue, one more. I don't know why it did that. It stopped, for whatever reason, the slideshow stopped showing the picture. Try one more and let's see. There we go. So we were getting some siding up, which is really exciting. Much of it is not on the part of the building that you can see from the street, but this is the zinc siding. Remember, there are 3 types of siding on the building. There's a concrete panel, like a plank almost. It looks like wood, actually. This zinc, which is a metal siding, and then the Ipe wood, all of which really do not require any upkeep, which is really wonderful. So anyways, the zinc is on its way up. And then I love this picture. This is the main entrance, and you may remember some of the artist rendering images that we have. This is the one that shows children and adults coming in to the main foyer of the building. So what you see in that sheathing, that especially the part that's partly empty there, that's where the office will be. And then the staircase that leads downstairs would be towards us in this image. And so this is one of the last interior sections to be framed. And I love this photo also because you can see the natural light. So those openings at the top, those will all be clear story windows, and just a tremendous amount of natural light. And I believe in this part of the building, we'll also have a wood ceiling. So just a really beautiful entranceway. And then I wanted to share with you some information regarding the transition itself. This week, we started transitioning students in a bigger way. So they've been involved with, as you know, I think we shared with you, that they've been quite involved with the mascot, and that's a project that extended across all elementary classrooms. Well, now we're actually bringing students together across the community, one grade at a time. And so earlier this week, our kindergartners, all 6 classes of them, gathered at the community center for a morning of activities with their peers and with all of the teachers and paraeducators who currently are in kindergarten classrooms. When the students arrived, they left their own kindergarten teacher and they formed new groups. So children were put in groups representative of all 6 of the classrooms. and they went through a series of activities. Here they're getting ready for a story with one of the kindergarten teachers inside the community center, but they also had, if you go to the next slide, an opportunity to play on the playscape and to create these wonderful tiger hats, and they just had a fabulous time. I had a chance to go over and just watch them play, and they were so excited. It was really great. So these types of coming together will continue for all of the other grades in the coming weeks, and actually just the next couple of weeks. With staff, we're continuing to support them with instructions on packing, and that is definitely happening in classrooms, as well as getting rid of materials that they won't be bringing with them. And we had a very successful school that entered the Mansfield Town Tag Sale Trail, and were able to find homes for almost a whole pod container of materials. We also had a very interesting meeting this week with somebody actually from Massachusetts who's been hired by the Connecticut Deep to support communities as they look for ways to deconstruct and improve their own recycling and zero waste efforts. And she gave us a lot of strategies on how to help us continue to find homes for all of our materials that we won't need, including, and we knew some of this, including things like furniture, as well as even some possibly reusable components of Southeast schools. So really, really good conversation, and that work is also well underway.
Anyone have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Martha.
I thought I understood that a lot of the desks and other excess equipment was going to be given to the Montessori schools in town. Are we still doing that? I knew they were looking forward to it.
Yep, they've been in touch about some equipment already. We can't actually give away any of our desks and things until after we make the move into the new building, so that will happen late next fall. But I know that some of the playground equipment is already going to another community school. So yes, we have started those conversations.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that
Yep.
that was ongoing.
Any other questions? All right. Done with that?
I am done.
Okay. I don't believe we have any new business, and I don't see any visitors. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Please come forward. My apologies.
Okay, am I on?
You're on.
Okay. Rochelle Marcus, 16 Homestead Drive. I'm speaking to you as a parent, so my parent hat is on. I just want to thank you, first of all, for all your hard work this year. The second year in or second and a half year of our pandemic has been a blast. I say that sarcastically, but I think we've handled it with as much grace as possible. And as a parent, I am very grateful for the support my children have been provided, including my son, who's up at E.O. Smith. So I just wanted to check in with you. My husband and I were having a conversation tonight. We received a communication from Region 19 about the uptick in COVID cases at E.O. Smith, and they had their prom this past weekend. So the commentary in the email said, you know, it's a lot of these sort of end-of-year activities. And there were lots of suggestions in the email, just like Kelly sends out to us, you know, weekly, reminding people of all the protocols that we're supposed to be doing and make sure you test before you come to school and all those things. We have lots of events coming up at the end of the school year. We have graduations, we have outdoor field days, we have indoor activities. And I don't know if I'm opening the can of worms, but it seems like it might be worth considering a conversation that if we're going to put, especially at the middle school, and I'm the parent of an 8th grader, if we're going to put all the 8th graders on the auditorium stage, which is 120-some 8th graders,
and their parents and families in the auditorium, if all of those people or many of those people are unmasked. I do just want to make sure that we are very thoughtful about our recommendations and what we can do to make sure that people are kept safe. I know that we are at a point where we have a very high percentage of people who are vaccinated and boosted and all those wonderful things. But we still have people who, once they are testing positive, they have to be out of school for a period of time. I would love not to have to miss a week from now till the end of the school year, or for my child to have to miss time when the German exchange students are here. So I'm putting it out there. This has been a very positive, uplifting, wonderful meeting, and I'm totally putting the downer on it. But I told my husband I would speak tonight and just kind of let you know where we were. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the board? All right, then let's go on to motion to approve the consent agenda. Now, David, thank you. Second, thank you. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Martha, Catherine?
Aye. Martha's raising her hand.
Oh, thank you very much. So that passes, thank you. Are there any suggestions for future agenda items?
Yes, I had a couple of questions, and these are things that can be worked on over the summer. One is, and I'm sort of tailing on to what Rochelle was saying, not to be a downer, but a lot of the schools and middle schools throughout the state have had a lot of trouble with drug use. And, you know, we have so many families that have kids in both the high school and the middle school. So I'd like to know what we're finding within our school community. It's very concerning how apparently easy fentanyl and so many other prescription drugs are available. And that's one item. And the second item is in the Finance Committee report, there's always, it talks about the school has, you know, they have all the different kind of scholarships available. So I was interested in the Hoddeman Scholarship that is mentioned often. And I wondered if we could please have a 5-year tracking of that from 2017 to 2022. Now, I know it wasn't used for a couple of years because there was no school, but I'm just interested in the yearly income, yearly distributions, and the yearly balance. I just thought that would be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly?
This may already exist, but I was interested in learning about sustaining some of what we've done with the diversity and equity training, and now with this summer's socio-emotional programming with future staff who will be joining the district who may not have had access to those programs, and just what that's going to look like over the next several years.
All right, is there anyone else?
Yes, me.
Catherine?
Thank you, Kathy. I would like to know how you guys plan to address the letter from Miss.
I'm sorry. Can I do that?
Please.
Catherine, I'm sorry. I had it in my notes to bring that up. I couldn't figure out how to put a slide together for that. I do want to let the board know, as part of the update on the new school construction, that you did have a letter in your packet from a resident, and that resident has been visited by a member of our owner's rep team from Colliers, and also a member of the school building committee. And I understand that the plantings went up this week, that the site was cleaned, and the last I heard was that the resident was quite pleased with the efforts that have been made. So yes, I apologize for not having brought that up sooner. But I think there has been some improvement already because the site's been cleaned, but there should be more immediate improvement because I do believe the plantings went in a couple of days ago.
If I may add to that, Kelly, not only the planned plantings of the trees going up, but the resident had a discussion with the school building chair about additional plantings such as fuchsia and whatnot that she seemed to be very satisfied with. So I think they're going above and beyond to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our neighbors. And my last understanding was that Sue was very pleased with her conversation with Randy.
So there's no lights going into bedrooms and nobody's looking at eyes or checking out what who's having for breakfast?
I hope not.
Because those are all things she brought up.
Yes, she did, and that's what we're saying is that is why 2 representatives at least have made visits there. And the last one was last weekend with Randy Wallakonis, and they discussed additional plantings that's going to give additional coverage. So I think we're listening to the neighbors' needs, and Sue seemed to be very pleased with the conversation.
Good.
All right. Anything else, Kelly?
I don't have anything else.
Then I will accept the motion to adjourn. Come on now. Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Kelly, for a second. We are adjourned at 8:55. Thank you, everyone. That was excellent presentations tonight. And thank you, Michelle, for your comments.
Table.